based or weird. This was done so that players could customize their party experience by playing only one type of minigame. Beautiful idea and concept, but I have absolutely no clue what they were on when it came time for labeling, because this is atrocious. Mario Party 4 is unique in that it only has one category, easy, so either a minigame is easy or it's not. Should be simple as pie, but that's not going to stop them from screwing up this early, because why in the world is Book Squirm considered easy? Are you freaking kidding me? Do you have any idea how crazy this game can get when played with someone who's actually competent? The pages speed up to such a degree that you need to have borderline future vision to make it to open holes. This minigame is so anti-easy that there is an in-game mode titled Challenge Book Squirm. You cannot make this up. Dungeon Duos is not easy. Maybe the opener is, but I have seen so many people fall into these pits attempting to jump onto the moving platform. You've got to be communicating with your partner here and know if they're just gonna send it and keep the platform moving, or if they're gonna stop for you, because that can make a big difference. The luck-based pipes at the end require you to keep track of where you and your partner are going so that you can ensure you're covering all of your bases and not retread the same ground. All that, complete with a rhythmic mashing test at the end, absolutely does not make this an easy minigame. What is an easy minigame, though, is Fish and Drips, which they think is not easy. How? If you're the solo player, you are simply pressing the buttons above your head. And if you're on the team of 3, you are simply waiting to press the singular button that appears on top of your head every now and then. How can this possibly be considered more difficult than Dungeon Duos or Book Squirm? Reversal Bomb is easy? Do you know how stressful this minigame is? No, I don't care if the controls are what it's saying are easy. Having to keep track of your partner, both of your opponents, and all of these bombs makes this a heart-pounding minigame. Sure, my advice is to just move up and down while spamming A, which makes playing this minigame easy, but I don't think the developers intended people like me to play it that way or tell other people to play it that way, so what's the deal here? Moving on to Mario Party 5, we now have our 4 categories, and our first offender is Chimp Chase. Look, I don't know about you, but chasing a bunch of monkeys around and trying to throw them back to their screaming parents is a bit of a weird situation to me. You know what doesn't come off as weird, though? Simply jumping around and hitting blocks for coins. But they sure seem to think it is. Flower Shower, Fish Upon a Star, and Frozen Frenzy are all listed as easy. But I'm a bit torn on our Frozen Pal here having that title. The other two's environments are fairly simple to traverse with a clear goal: collect flowers or survive, whereas Frozen Frenzy's environment is a bit more complex, especially with it being a little transparent, which may throw players off. Your goal is also not as straightforward, since you could go out of your way to collect all the crystals, beat up players to take theirs, camp in different areas. I wouldn't list it as skill-based necessarily, but definitely not easy. Pushy penguins, though, not being labeled as action-oriented is ridiculous. You are fighting for your life as you hopelessly string your way through a massive herd of penguins, some of them giant, that have absolutely no concern for whether you live or die. What more do these penguins need to do for this to be considered an action minigame? Grab a freaking bazooka? Wait, hold on. It's easy and skill-based. Yeah, okay, and I'm slow psych. First off, this is not an easy minigame. There's an end to it that comes decently quick, and yet players fall off pretty quickly most of the time. I'm hesitant to even give it the skill-based label because it doesn't feel like there's a lot you have to learn to master this one, nor is it complex enough for me. What I do consider a little complex, that's apparently pretty easy, is Rumble Fumble. If you are playing this minigame the way it was originally intended, then you'll find that feeling the difference between how the buckets rumble can be a little bit tricky, enough to the point that I take this tag off. They've done so good at labeling button mashers as easy minigames up until this point, so I haven't had to bash on any yet, but Triple Jump, you just had to break the cycle, didn't you? What part about button mashing a singular button and then switching to button mash a different button is hard for you? It's not like you've got to quickly switch between a bunch of random buttons over a long period of time. It's just mashing A, then mashing B, then mashing A again every time this minigame comes up. Oh hey, Vicious Vending! I don't think I got the memo, but apparently turning a lever clockwise a little bit is enough to get a minigame the action label, but not fighting for your life against a bunch of killer penguins. Okay, I can accept that. I can learn to accept that. I can grow and change as a person. But in what world? In what world is Vicious Venting a skill-based minigame? I have tested this game till I developed gray hairs. There is no strategy or skill or action to be employed here to change the outcome. It is all luck. I have identified it. In the minigame explanation, by its own admission, it says whatever comes out is a complete surprise. I applaud Vicious Vending for somehow managing to break through my incredibly low expectations and go even lower than that. Bravo. And going off of the skill-based train, Mario Mechs is somehow not skill-based. How? What part of this doesn't require teamwork, precise inputs, environmental awareness, and so on? Even from the solo player's perspective, you've got to keep track of 3 other players deciding who to target, who to ignore, and when to use each of your abilities. It feels like the quintessential skill-based minigame. What could possibly be more deserving of the skill-based label than it? Math is hard. Ah, yes. Bus Buffer. My favorite action-filled minigame. Feel the heart-pounding excitement as you slowly swab left and right over and over again. Don't be fooled. Nothing else comes quite close to this level of thrilling, action-packed gameplay. Nothing. Mario Party 6. Please give me some good news. That's Crate and Peril without the skill-based label. Can you imagine putting in blood, sweat, and tears on the team of 3 and actually being one of the 5 people in the universe to win this minigame just to find out that the developers don't consider it a skill-based minigame? No, I do not take the skill label in Mario Party 5 being changed to the hard label in this title seriously. In the original Japanese versions for these games, it's labeled as technique for both. In skill, what they had originally was a better translation. Inversely, they actually fixed a translation problem I had by having this label set as goofy in Mario Party 5 when the word better translates to weird as they fixed in Mario Party 6. Oh yeah, bet you didn't expect a random Mario Party Japanese release comparison in this video, huh? What can I say? I'm full of surprises. Oh, and if you disagree with anything I said, then I'll suck you into Crate and Peril and leave you there forever. Burn Style. Oh, my beloved Burn Style, why don't you have a skill-based label? Why? Like I get it, your controls and objective are a bit on the simpler side, but this minigame usually ends quickly. It takes a lot of skill to go at it with an opponent jump after jump. It can be a really tense minigame to play. I'm not gonna go super hard with labeling this as skill-based. It's more of a soft one, so there. Somehow, someway, Black Hole Boogie managed to convince everyone that it deserves the skill label on it, despite being functionally identical to all these other button mashers that do not have the skill label. So there must be some kind of strategy in this one to warrant it, because otherwise, I don't know why they put the label here. I'm sorry, I looked ahead and I almost threw up at what I saw. You aren't eating while watching this, are you? I'm sorry, I can't wait. We have to continue, so just try to hold it in the best you can. Okay. Are you ready? Pityfall is skill-based. Pityfall This is one of the most blatantly luck-based minigames in the franchise, and I'm supposed to believe it's skill-based? Like, did I miss something here? Anything? Do I need to set out a bounty with a reward of a smiley face to get some answers? Because plot twist, this isn't even the minigame I almost barfed at. That was this piece of crap that is Trick or Treat. I had spent hours playing this minigame, trying to find some way to figure out which tree is the tallest when it shuffles, but no matter what approach I took, no matter what angle I looked from, I came up with nothing. So to see the skill label on this infuriates me to no end. What do they know? Vicious vending is one thing, but I have a personal beef with Trick or Treat. If there is something, anything skill-based about this minigame, then I have to have answers. Mario Party 7. Oh, Mario Party 7, my beloved. Please just be normal. Just, no way. It actually labels them correctly. Not a single one is out of place. Sure, maybe you could debate a few of these, but I think we're okay. Yeah, this is good. It took a while for them to get the hang of categorizing the minigames properly, but I'm proud of them. Maybe there is hope after all. No, you can't do this to me. You can't do this to me. After everything we've been through, Mario Party. You know what? Cointagious, I've grown throughout this journey, so I'm willing to look past the fact that you're labeled as an action minigame when all I have to do is jump. I'm willing to look past the fact that you're labeled as a weird minigame, even though, again, we're just jumping. And despite it all, I'm even able to look past the fact that you're labeled as a skill-based minigame. Skill-based minigame. Even though we're just jumping. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much to my easy, action, skill, and weird members. And I'll see you next time. Farewell.
and like Mapbot and all of that, I'm really focusing on like Freddy, Roxy, Monty, and Chica because they show emotions. So the question is that do they receive the same benefits as the human employees? And it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but once again, they're shown to show emotions. Monty is shown to have anger and jealousy issues, and Chica is shown to like pizza so much that she attacks other staff for it. You know what? Freddie misses Bonnie. Like, they have complex relationships with each other, and you see Roxy, like, even crying at one point about her own self-esteem. Another FNAF game that is pretty well known for having its sentient animatronics is Sister Location, which is my personal favorite. And here, I'm gonna play something for you guys.
Allura is going to follow you. She will try to catch you. I will help you avoid her. She will not follow you inside the scooping room. She is afraid.
So yeah, I know that technically Ennard is the one talking to us, so whether or not we can trust them is like up in the air. But at the same time, it is shown throughout the game that the animatronics don't like the situation that they're in, and they don't like going to the scooping room. For those of you who have not played Sister Location, the scooping room is essentially a room where they use the scooper to rip the endoskeletons out of the animatronics for maintenance and to disassemble them. And now you might be wondering, well, Lindsay, we're talking about Security Breach, not Sister Location. That's very true. But Freddy asks if the other animatronics are okay whenever Gregory starts talking about them getting destroyed.
She moved through the walls.
Really? I didn't know Roxy could see through walls.
These are Roxy's eyes?
Well, yeah. There was an accident in the raceway.
Is she okay?
It's clear they have this really complicated and like complex relationship with each other, and also a care for their physical safety. So, therefore, I've decided that their physical and emotional needs need to be met just as much with the human employees. This game does not do that. Not at all. Ooh. Alright, so now that we've decided that the 4 animatronics are employees, let's move on to our first category, which is fire hazards and exits. Oh, come on. This is a FNAF game. The fire hazards are gonna be pretty bad, but it's really bad in this game. This game, in fact, is so bad with emergency exits that it's an entire plot point in the game, is just trying to figure out how to get out of there. Like, the point is to escape the pizza place. You might be thinking, oh, well, you know, it's overnight. No, because they still have one human employee. So even if we aren't even counting the animatronics as employees, which I am, then they still have to have unlocked emergency exits. So the first violation I have for this game is 1910-37B4. The direction of travel to the exit or exit discharge is not immediately apparent. Signs must be posted along the exit access indicating the direction of travel to the nearest exit. Essentially what that means is that you have to have signs pointing where to go, and some areas actually do have them, believe it or not, but most don't. This game is an absolute maze to try to figure out where you are. Then of course there's just trying to figure out what rooms are exits and what ones aren't. 1910-37B5 states that each doorway or passage along an exit access that could be mistaken for an exit must be marked not an exit. This doesn't happen almost ever. There's maybe a couple moments where like there will be labeling for certain rooms, but nothing will say like not an exit. In fact, like so many things just like aren't really clear what's going on in this game. For example, there's the question we've all been asking, hey, why is this room on fire right now? This falls under a couple of things. First off, there's no fire alarm going off, there's no sprinklers going off. It's really unclear how long it's been on fire for because we never see the fire start, it's just been there. So the first one I put it under is 1910-37E. An employee alarm system must be operable. Employers must install and maintain an operable employee alarm system. There's no alarm in that room. Like, are they working? Are there sprinklers? Is this just like the resident on fire room? Like, what is going on here? And then if we assume that the alarm isn't working, then 191037A4 states that safeguards designed to protect employees during an emergency, e.g. sprinkler systems, alarm systems, fire doors, exit lighting must be in proper order at all times. Now here's the thing, I did see like fire alarms in some areas, but none of them were going off when there's just a room on fire. So I don't think that anything's working. Let's talk about emergency exits again. 1910-37A3 states that exit routes must be free and unobstructed. No materials or equipment may be placed either permanently or temporarily within the exit route. The exit access must not go through a room that can be locked. Every single security office has those battery-powered doors that can just trap you in there if they run out of power.
I'm trapped. Chica found me. There's only one security door.
Not to mention the loading docks. Let's talk about that.
Think so? There's a funny locked box with a badge on it.
Those are alarming controls. Something is not right. Someone must have changed the permissions. You are going to need a much higher security level to get out that way. Come back to me right away.
You need a certain level of security clearance to open the emergency exits. Let me show you guys a clip really quick.
You found a fire escape. Unfortunately, I do not think there is a way to reach it without becoming a VIP. It is not a very good emergency system. You are lucky there is not a fire. I have lodged a formal complaint.
Brady, the doors are all locked. I can't get out of here.
So yeah, you need to be a VIP to be able to access the fire escapes. What? That is insane. The next one is 1910-37A. The danger to employees must be minimized.
Aside from the daily risk of lawsuits, there's also the risk that something might be hiding inside whatever you just purchased with that steeply discounted price tag. Of course, that would only be a serious danger if there were something outside that's been trying to get in for months now, which we are not confirming to be the case.
Anyways, danger to employees must be minimized in terms of exit routes, meaning that the battery-powered doors are a major problem. Next one is 1910-176C, which is housekeeping. This is going to be in literally every single section a part of this video. Storage areas must be kept free from accumulation of materials that constitute hazard from tripping, fire, explosion, or pest harborage. So I put this under fire hazards. It's gonna go in every single section because it pretty much breaks every single rule of this. There's open flame just sitting in the sewers, by the way. And I mean, of course, the resident room on fire, but we're all familiar with it by now. But like, no, really, there's just open flame sitting in the sewers. Okay, so let's put it on the map. Keep in mind, this is what I'm using for this section. It's technically, it says obscured exit, but I'm changing it to fire hazard, don't worry. I fixed it, we're good. All right, so here's what the maps look like right now. You're gonna notice that level 4 is not up there. I have it right here with me because, to be honest, Bonnie Bull is looking pretty up to code. Like, maybe they shouldn't have decommissioned Bonnie because honestly, pretty good. Okay, let's move on to sanitation hazards, which honestly, this one is one of the bigger sections for this game. Should not surprise you at all. I'm sure you're all thinking the same thing I am. Hey, Fazbear Entertainment, why is there trash piles everywhere? Let's start off this section with 1910 141H, food handling. All employee food service facilities and operations shall be carried out in accordance with sound hygienic principles. Have you guys all seen that kitchen? I believe it's near the Fazbear area that has the bugs crawling out of it, and it's just a pile of trash with roaches. Hello? Like, this is not an abandoned facility. This is being used day to day, and they just have like a trash pile with roaches crawling out of it. I was rooting for you. Fazbear Entertainment. I thought Sister Location would be worse than the Pizzaplex, and I am so wrong. This place is so nasty. You guys have to understand how nasty it is. And then there's 1910-141G4, sanitary storage. No food or beverages shall be stored in toilet rooms or in an area exposed to toxic material. So, here's the thing. I would say, like, okay, they are properly putting things away, but with their trash, it is so bad. Like, I don't think that any food should be in the same room as the immense amount of trash that they have in any of their kitchens, especially the one where Chica gets compacted. That kitchen is so bad. 1910-141A31. All places of employment shall be kept clean to the extent that the nature of the work allows. Already covered the kitchens, but there's trash piles everywhere. I literally found a trash pile that is in the shower. Why is there a trash pile in a random shower? I don't understand. And in just a bunch of random bathrooms. Like, there's such big trash piles, and also like just random clutter everywhere in this game. Alright, 1910-141A32, the floor of every workroom shall be maintained so far as practical in a dry condition. And then it goes on to essentially talk about how if there's wet processes to be used, like in the sewers, you have proper footwear. You have to follow along with me, okay? Danny is in the sewers, and she is not given proper footwear to be there. Neither is Chica. Understand, I probably sound crazy, that you might not agree with this one, but they need to have proper footwear. She's wearing a fursuit. She is not safe to be in the sewers. She is going to fall into the pit of just robots that kill you. Also, like the things that they consider platforms in the sewers. You mean the wooden boards? This wide wooden boards that you expect your employees to traverse? That is insane. Absolutely insane. 1910-141A42. All sweeping, solid, or liquid waste shall be removed in such a manner as to avoid creating a menace to health. That trash has been there a long time. Here's the thing, I was like, okay, well, it's like kind of like a trash room, so maybe like it's just there temporarily, and they're a sign of like those like forklift things, like being able to take the trash out. But some of like the old bots that are in there, like they look like they've been there for a long, long time. And I guarantee you they have not cleaned out that area. Also, there's an area where you walk in, you can see the particles in the air. Which clean air falls under 1910-94A16, which is clean air, air of such purity that will not cause harm or discomfort to an individual if it is inhaled for extended periods of time. Alright, 1910-141G3, waste disposal containers. Essentially, they shall be emptied not less frequently than once each working day unless unused, and shall be maintained in a clean and sanitary condition. There's this part where you can literally just climb over all of the piles of trash, and it is crazy. Not to mention the fact that they have so much trash built up down in that room that it's created a trash maze, and it's insane to me. 1910-141A5, vermin control. Every enclosed workplace shall be so constructed, equipped, and maintained so far as reasonably practical as to prevent the entrance or harborage of rodents, insects, and other vermin. Once again, I mentioned the kitchen that is near Fazerglass. I really hope I can find footage of that kitchen, because there are roaches crawling out of a garbage pile there. It is so bad. It's so nasty. I feel like maybe they should stop firing the human employees and replacing them with robots. Alright, so this one I was very torn on whether or not to show, because honestly some of my evidence for it is a little shaky. But it's 1910-141C11, and it's essentially about the number of bathrooms you need for employees. Now you're probably wondering, Lindsay, there's so many bathrooms in the game. Yes, but a lot of them are hidden behind security levels. Another thing that we just really don't know is there's so many different like security clearances, and people in my comments were trying to tell me that maybe it's just a nighttime protocol, but it doesn't really make sense because there's only one human security guard, and it seems like the staff bots like kind of remain to like one area. It's really unclear how like employees of like the lowest security clearance go to the bathroom. Then you're probably wondering, Lindsay, there's bathrooms that are in the daycare and the arcade. Those don't have security clearances. They don't, but they do in a way. The employees still need to get the daycare pass and the dance pass to go to those areas, and this is confirmed through this. This is what I found. The employees still need to get the passes that the customers get to go to different areas. For a place with the number of employees that they have, I guess around like 100 to 150 for the amount of employees, they would need to have at least 6 bathrooms. And they do have that, but once again, it's behind different clearances. Closest bathroom, I believe, for lower level employees is in the utility tunnels. And then after that, I believe there's one that is in Chica's Cakes as well. Seems really inconvenient for the employees to have to go up several levels or go down several levels just to go pee. If anyone knows if there's like easier bathroom access than that, please comment it down below because I was kind of going crazy over it. All right, this violation again, 1910-176C, housekeeping. Storage areas shall be kept free from accumulation of materials that constitute hazards from tripping, fire, explosion, or pest harborage. Once again, the roaches in the kitchen. All right, so let's mark the sanitation ones on the map. There's all the maps. If you see anything on there that you're like, I don't know what that is, it's under the same exact violation, or it's like just a repeat of something I've already said. All right, we're on to my favorite category, which is electrical, because what is going on? Everything is sparking in the game. They optimize their power usage super weird. The generators are a whole other conversation. Sun and moon are a whole conversation. The security doors are an issue. It just, oh man, it's like the gift that doesn't stop giving. So let's start off with 1910-37B, which is lighting must be adequate and appropriate. There's a lot of places that make sense for the lighting to be pretty dim, and then there's other places that make me like question, like, why is it so dark in here? Like, I get that it's nighttime and everything, but even when you stay and it's past 6 a.m. when the doors open, there's still places where it's like, why is it dark? And it's not even just the fact that like the lights are dim, it's also there's lights that are flickering everywhere, like literally everywhere. Then there's the whole deal with sun and moon where it's like clearly this is an issue if they have 5 generators in the daycare and 5 more in the sewers. They must have issues with their lighting. And I guess on the topic of generators, we should talk about the daycare, and this is so requested. Now, if for some reason you don't know, essentially early in the game, you get stuck in the daycare with an animatronic called Sun, who when the lights turn off will turn into Moon and will chase you around the daycare while you have to turn on the generators to get the power back on. Where are the generators, you may ask?
Gregory, I do not know what you did, but the lights are out in the daycare. You need to find the emergency backup generators and turn them on. They are in the play structures.
In the play structure. Hello? So, 1910-303 requires employers to mark electrical equipment with descriptive markings, including the equipment's voltage, current, wattage, or other ratings. Technically, I haven't seen this on any of the electrical equipment in the game at all, but especially with the generators, both in the sewers and the daycares, you don't see that at all. Now, I know what you guys want me to talk about with the generators, and it's the fact that kids can get access to them. Truthfully, because it's OSHA, we can't care about that. What we do care about is employee safety. No thinking about the kids, no thinking about the customers. We don't think about this, okay? There's no talking of Sun making a kid piss themselves. We can't care about that. The only thing we care about is that they're causing a biohazard. That is the only thing related to children that we can care about in this instance. Issues like that would go through other avenues, not OSHA, because OSHA is exclusively employee safety. But we will discuss further why the generators in play structure are unsafe for employees. Alright, so in 1910-335B, OSHA requires employers to use alerting techniques, safety signs and tags and barricades in attendance, essentially to warn and protect employees from hazards which could cause injury due to electric shock. There is no signage on the play structure to warn that this is like an electrical room. Don't worry, those of you guys that are fans of Sun and Moon, we will circle back to Sun and Moon later in a different violation. For now though, 1910-303B1, electrical equipment should not be located in damp, wet, and extreme temperatures. This is referencing the sewers. There's absolutely no guarding techniques to keep the generators away from the water. There's just loose generators sitting around in the sewers. Alright, so 1926, 416B2, working spaces, walkways, and similar locations shall be kept clear of cords so as to not create a hazard to employees. This place is trip hazard galore. It is insane. We have the third floor audio visual booth, several security rooms, the vents which maintenance has to go through, the play structures, the sewers. It's one of the worst hazards here in terms of quantity. Like, there's so many places that it is. And so many of these cords are sparking too, which brings us to 1910-303B1, which is examination. Electrical equipment shall be free from recognized hazards that are likely to cause death or serious physical harm to employees. I just mentioned the wires that are sparking everywhere. But let's also talk about Freddy. We'll circle back to this moment again later, but the fact that if you make one mistake on Freddy, do you know what happens?
Good job. Now use the testing console to run diagnostics and complete the procedure.
He kills you. Yeah, he just straight up murders you. And this is a recognized hazard.
Emergency. The protective cylinder will protect important service personnel outside of the protective cylinder. Deactivating animatronic safety protocols now. It is recommended that no mistakes are made during the procedure.
Freddy is also known to frequently malfunction and just fall over, as seen in the beginning of the game. Chica is shown to attack staff bots over pizza flavored things. And then back to the sparking wires. There is a high voltage zone right next to first aid where the wires are sparking over the guardrail. Which then that brings us to 1926, 416B1, which is essentially guarding techniques. And it just has to do with making sure that when an area has a bunch of electrical equipment, to make sure it's properly guarded so when people walk by, they don't get injured. Now, they do try to do some guarding, not always. Sometimes they do. And when they do, it usually doesn't work. It usually just sparks into the walkway. This is also covered in 1910-303G21, which is another thing that is about properly guarding. We're back to the resident violation of this game, which is 1910-176C, housekeeping. Once again, storage areas shall be kept free from the accumulation of materials that constitute hazards from tripping, fire, exploding, or pest harborages. Once again, there's so many wires. You know how I said I was going to circle back to Freddy? Yeah, 1910-212A32. This one's really wordy, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but essentially what it says is that if you are operating on something, you need to not be in the danger zone. And if you are, you need to be properly guarded from being in the danger zone. So, the people that are outside of the protective cylinder, they're perfectly fine. They are safe, they are guarded from the situation. You, though, have to go in there and fix it, and technically I know he's 3 as a child, so we can't count him. But in theory, if you were to be a mechanic that were operating on Freddy, you would be within the danger zone, and it didn't seem like they had any personal protective equipment in that area, and you would assume it would be nearby. And I didn't see anything. Once again, you don't get just like burned, you get killed. You get your head bit off. Speaking of injuries to the head, 1910-335A15, employees must wear non-conductive head protection wherever there is a danger of head injury from electric shock. We're counting the animatronics as employees. We've gone over this. They aren't given any like helmets for any of the situations they're in. They are crawling through the sewers, getting go-karts thrown at them, getting hit by a splash bucket, and no one was like, maybe we'll give them something. Of course, in this instance, it's about electrical protection. There's so many sparking wires, I could almost say half of the pizzaplex. They would need some sort of head protection as well as gloves. 1910-334A22, if there is a defect or evidence of damage that might expose an employee to injury, the defective or damaged item shall be removed from service, and no employee may use it until repairs and tests necessary to render the equipment safe have been made. This is a pretty big one because Chica, for example, her voice box has been known to like stun other animatronics, and then Monty destroyed his entire room and has like major anger issues, and it's to the point where like they have to chain up a bunch of fences to keep him out. Then of course Roxy has been known to destroy like the driving aid bots out of jealousy, and they've tried to do things like, okay, like we'll put the pizza scented stuff like over here away from Chica, but that didn't solve the problem at all. In fact, like no one was even listening to that, because if you go into the trash compactor area, you see a ton of pizza flavored stuff in boxes that are just down there. They make notes of how terrible this is, and then they don't do anything to fix it. They're robots. You can reprogram them, right? I've said this before, especially on my TikTok, that I feel like Fazbear Entertainment like has this obsession with authenticity, and they almost go too far with it. We saw it with the Springlock suits before, and now we see it with, I feel like they're just giving these animatronics like these super real emotions to the point where they're having existential crises. What am I doing? But just in general with their electrical safety, there are several rooms throughout the game that just are overall unsafe. The wires are everywhere, there's sparks flying, there's sparks in the vents constantly. Once again, the electrical deterrents on the doors are so unsafe. In fact, in the first aid station for kids that's with the endoskeletons, on the floor there is a sparking wire right as you enter. Same with parts and services. So as you can see, I've already put some electrical ones on the map. Once again, that was before I started filming. Alright, so our last category is just overall unsafe / miscellaneous. It's just a bunch of violations I couldn't really find a place for because, surprise, it's Five Nights at Freddy's and there's some weird stuff in here. So I mentioned the sewers before. That is like a major area that just is a whole mess. According to 1910-37G2, the minimum width permitted for a passageway used as an exit access is 28 inches. I count the wood boards you have to get across as exit access because if you were to try to go around them, yeah, you'd get killed. First off, something that I've been personally excited to talk about is the fact that the entire Pizzaplex is an OSHA violation itself. In several messages, we actually find out that they think that they're building on top of a sinkhole when they're doing construction in Roxy Raceway. Now, at the very end of the game, we do find out what that is, and it's not a sinkhole, but they're building on the burned down location of the FNAF 6 place. But it practically is like building on a sinkhole. It's unstable ground. 1926 1402B. The equipment must not be assembled or used unless ground conditions are firm. Essentially, they shouldn't be still using construction vehicles and everything when they know that they're building on top of something that could potentially be a sinkhole. And then we are brought to the stuff in the trash compactor not having a railing. 1926-252B. When debris drops through the holes in the floor without the use of chutes, the area into which the materials dropped shall be completely enclosed with barricades. Essentially, above and below there should be barricades to make sure that nobody falls in the trash compactor. Looking at you, Chica. Fun fact, you're supposed to have clearance signs above garages, and there are none. 1910-176E, clearance limits. Clearance signs warn of clearance limits shall be provided. There are none in the loading docks, and I didn't see any in that garage area in the trash area either. 1910-176A, for mechanical handling equipment exceeding sufficient safe clearances shall be allowed for aisles at loading docks, through doorways, wherever turns or passage must be made. Aisles and passageways shall be kept clear and in good repair, with no obstruction across or in aisles that could create a hazard. Look at this. Look at this. The garages in the trash area, that's pretty bad. 1910-22A3, walking working surfaces are maintained free of hazards such as sharp or protruding objects, loose boards, corrosion, leaks, spills, snow, and ice. In the trash area, you quite literally walk on loose boards. It's one once again not get killed by the sewage pit of robots. Once again, our resident violation, 1910-176C, housekeeping, storage areas shall be kept free from accumulation of materials that constitute hazards from tripping, fire, explosion, or pest markers. We're back. They decide for the area that DJ Music Man crawls around to store things just super inefficiently. You can see as he just crawls in an area that he's allowed to be. Everything just falls over. Like, you would think in this situation, if they have all these like tunnels for him to crawl through and he does janitorial services, why wouldn't they like fasten down all of like their equipment and stuff if they know that this giant spider robot, like huge robot, is going to be going through there? This also kind of falls under 1910-176B, which is secure storage. Storage material shall not create a hazard. Bags, containers, bundles, etc. stored in tiers shall be stacked, blocked, interlocked, and limited in height so they're stable and secure. Okay, so this part is less of a crime than the rest. There's improperly stacked plates all over the pizza flag. Like on security desks and in like really random and weird places. Like, I get the kitchen, but like randomly like super high stacked plates on like security, it's so weird. This one we could also argue for the trash compactor situation. It's 1926-501B1. Each employee on a walking working surface with an unprotected side or edge 6 feet or more above the lower level shall be protected from falling by the use of guardrail systems, safety net systems, or personal fall arrest systems. In Fazer Glass, when you go through the Pennsylvania room, you see there's this no real fall prevention when you're walking in that catwalk back there. I also will argue the elevator that's on the main stage needs to have railings in between. Alright, so this one, remember how I said I was going to talk about sun and moon for another hazard? 1910-135A1, the employer shall ensure that each affected employee wears a protective helmet when working in areas where there's potential for injury to the head from falling objects. You're gonna have to hear me out with this one. Sun and moon are both falling objects. You cannot tell me that sun jumping from that height into the ball pit hasn't killed someone. I would not be surprised if the missing children weren't actually from Vanny, but were actually from sun jumping in the ball pit on top of children. Like, Sun has a whole balcony that's like just built for him so he can jump in the ball pit. And then Moon, at the end of each hour overnight, all the power will divert to the recharge stations. And then Moon is just free to wander the building for some reason. And when he does that, he hangs from a rope and pretends to swim in the air. Yeah, just from one single rope, and he's a machine. Any of the employees need to wear helmets in the daycare. It is so unsafe. It is so bad. And then this brings up 1910-28B11C, personal fall protection systems, such as personal fall arrest, travel restraint, positioning systems. I think Moon needs one that's like better than just a rope. I really do, because if he's gonna do that, and you know what, more freedom to him, I think he at least needs something that's more secure so he doesn't fall and just like shatter into a bajillion pieces. As for Sun, I think personally we need to get him a safety net that's above the ball pit. That way he doesn't land on anybody. Alright, so I'm bringing up the personal protective equipment stuff again, but under a different context. It's not necessarily electrical equipment anymore. It's just violation 1926-95A. Working with dangerous materials and equipment, you have to have access to personal protective equipment. So, by the end of the game, the animatronics are so messed up that it is like ridiculous. They should have been given personal protective equipment if they expected them to crawl through the sewers, if they expected them to do all of that work. They at least gave Monty sunglasses, which protects him from being blasted in the face by a phaser blaster. Which, by the way, any kid can just get and shoot the robots. Which they are absolutely aware of the fact that the phaser blasters and the phas cams can damage the robots. You see it in several messages. The place just like is okay with kids having these things around robots. So Monty is safe, but the others are not. You can even shoot Freddy.
I am your friend. Survival. Ready.
Chica, Roxy, and Freddy are not given personal protective equipment. Against this recognized hazard, so that is a big violation. This brings up a point that I made earlier about Vanny not having the proper footwear. But 1910-136A general requirements, and that is essentially that the employer shall ensure that each effective employee uses protective footwear when working in areas where there is a danger of foot injuries due to falling, rolling objects, objects piercing the sole. Once again, she is literally in a fursuit, walking around the entire Pizzaplex. And can we talk about how you can just find her therapy tapes? At first I was like, I don't think there's really gonna be a violation for this, but then I realized OSHA does cover stuff with medical records. There's a violation that's 1910-1020C3, which is essentially designated representative, and that is someone where you can sign over any health records that you want the employers to have. So that person can have access to it, but anybody that you want to have access to your medical stuff, you have to have them sign a bunch of paperwork. Now, is she having everyone in the Pizzaplex sign paperwork to listen to her therapy tapes? No. They're just sitting around. You can find them all over the Pizzaplex, just in random places. Then there's violation 1926-407B. It's a violation that's in pretty much every game. Equipment must be deemed as safe. Yeah, okay. This one's a bit milder. Color identification for hazards. Some places actually do surprisingly have hazard labels, but a lot of places don't, so they tried, I guess. 1910-242A, general requirements. Each employer shall be responsible for the safe condition of tools and equipment used by employees. The driver bot is breaking frequently because Roxy keeps destroying them when she gets mad. No one is trying to fix her at all, and it just seems a little weird because she's like destroying like their staff bots and all the employees are mad about it. And then also, like Freddy freaks out a lot and just like falls over. And I feel weird like counting him as like equipment that the employees use, but at the same time like the animatronics are. So it seems like all of their equipment, aka the animatronics, and just in general, like there's so much breaking equipment everywhere, just isn't functional. This one I'm a little iffy about. It was under ventilation, so I think that I'm interpreting it correctly, but it's 1910-94A31E1. Doors shall be flanged tight when closed. The vents don't have covers on them. It is 3:30. This is overall safety. 1910-22B loads. The employer must ensure that each walking working surface can support the maximum intended load for that surface. There are boards you just walk across. 1910-22C access and egress. The employer must provide and ensure each employee uses a safe means of access and egress to and from walking working surfaces. Once again, there's a board for a bridge. 1910-22B2 hazardous conditions on walking working surfaces are corrected or repaired before an employee uses it again. I just don't feel like they're doing that, to be honest. 1910-30A3, the employer must train each employee in at least the following topics, and it's all about fall hazards. No one is trained in fall hazards, because if they were, then Sun would not be jumping off of that balcony into a ball pit full of children. 1910-133A2, the employer shall ensure that each effective employee wears eye protection around flying hazardous objects. We need to wear eye protection around Sun and Moon because they are hazardous flying objects. 1910-133A1, the employer shall ensure that each effective employee wears appropriate eye or face protection, once again around flying objects. Please, we'll just wear it around Sun and Moon. Okay, a couple sanitation ones. 1910-134A2, a respirator shall be provided for each employee when such equipment is necessary. The sewers are pretty bad, and I didn't see any sitting around, so I'm assuming that they aren't giving them to them. And of course, biological hazard signs. There are none around at the Pizzaplex. In particular, I'm thinking of the pizzeria underneath, aka the sinkhole, where there is a man in a bunny suit rotting away down there. We need a biological hazard sign, please. Okay, and there's one for electricity, 1910-147A22B. An employee is not required to place any part of his or her body into an area on a machine or piece of equipment where work is actually performed upon the material being processed, or where an associated danger zone exists during the machine operation. That is so many words. They shouldn't have to go into the protective cylinder like that and like risk getting their head bit off by Freddy. I know I sound absolutely crazy right now, and that's because this project has caused me to spiral just a little bit. For context, I'm doing this on top of having 7 college classes that are 3 hours long each, as well as tons of homework, and it's my last semester of my senior year. So now I thought it would just be fun to help visualize it even more, pushing it past just the color coding and labeling all of the hazards on a bunch of pieces of paper that I wrote out in 2 hours. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is tape up the everywhere category, which is a violation that is taking place in pretty much every single part of the pizza slice. Which, surprise, this is the biggest section that will have the most violations. Let's get that taped up. Okay, so I put it up there because I was running out of wall space. So we'll just cram everything in there, don't worry. Okay, so the first thing we have is alarms must be operable. I don't think there's alarms anywhere that are actually working. Genuinely, I just don't see that anywhere. What's that? Right there. Here's a big one. The entire Pizzaplex itself is an OSHA violation because they are aware of the fact that they're building over a sinkhole, aka the old pizzeria. Yikes. Equipment must be deemed as safe, and then also nowhere is like prepared to have DJ Music Man crawling around. So really they should have storage areas properly equipped for that type of thing if they're gonna have him go in there. It's insane that they're just like, oh yeah, this giant robot that can like trample everything. Oh yeah, he's the janitor. Proper footwear. This is not proper footwear to be wearing in the sewers. I'm sorry, Vanessa. Once again, I feel like I'm just like clowning on you right now, but come on, girl. You can do better. My last one and everything is biohazard signs, please. Please. I am on my hands and knees begging you to put biohazard signs. So bad. This one is essentially like, where am I? Please guide me. I'm gonna put this in the trash area. Please don't lock your exits. This is gonna go right where the VIP fire escape is. Open flame in both Roxy Raceway and the trash area. Why are none of the sprinklers or alarms working in Roxy Raceway? I would like to know that. Both of these are unlabeled generators. I'm sure you know where I'm gonna put these. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Guarding to make sure that you don't touch anything electrical. This could technically go everywhere, but I was thinking of this one specific location, which is here in the utility tunnels by First Aid. Right next to First Aid, there are sparks flying right over there. There were like 2 areas I could think of with sanitary storage. One of them is one of the kitchens where you send a Monty mix, and the other is the kitchen with Chica. So respirators must be provided in areas with bad air. So that's the sewers again, as well as the area where Monty breaks through. Floors must be dry. Well, here's the thing. They need to be given like waterproof equipment or dry areas, and they aren't given that in the sewers, so that's why I included this. That area is so bad. Access and egress / loads. These are essentially for the plank bridge that are in the sewer area. By far our worst area. So this is what it looks like. That's a lot of violations. So now that we have the maps figured out, the last thing that we want to do is find out how much Fazbear Entertainment potentially owes OSHA. So we have 55 violations in total, and 48 of them are willful, and then 7 of them are serious / other than serious. And I also included fine reduction, which is based on number of employees. I said that maybe around 100 employees is what they had, which would be a 10% fine reduction. So I'm going to do the math really quick, and then I'll be right back, and I'm going to tape it up on the wall. So I did the math, and the total amount of money that Fazbear Entertainment owes OSHA potentially for security breach is $6,356,529 in fines. That is so bad. Oh my god. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, leaving a like. I'm going to be doing more content like this in the future, including one that is going to be every single FNAF game and all of their OSHA violations and how much they owe as well. If you want to see a sneak peek of that, you can go over to my TikTok and follow me there, where I'm going to be posting just sneak peeks of some of my favorite violations from each of the FNAF games. I've already done 1 through 6, so please check that out. And honestly, I've even considered doing the FNAF novels if that's something that people are actually interested in. And after I'm done with Five Nights at Freddy's, I'm going to move on to other game series and do a similar thing. Just comment down below or on my TikTok what you're interested in seeing, and I will consider it. And one more time, thank you guys so much for the amount of support you've given me on TikTok and encouraging me to do stuff like this. It's made me so happy, and I hope that I get to do this for you guys again soon.
I cannot see.